Did you know the U.S. Army deployed a unit of artists, actors, and sound engineers to fake battles? World War II was a conflict defined by steel and fire. It was won by the sheer industrial might of the American war machine. Thousands of Sherman tanks, fleets of B-17 bombers, and millions of rounds of ammunition. But what if I told you that one of the most effective units in the U.S. Army didn't fire live ammunition? What if I told you that the United States defeated the Nazis using balloons, loudspeakers, and acting? Welcome to the American Frontline. Today, we are uncovering the story of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, better known as the Ghost Army. It's late 1944. The Allies have landed at Normandy, but the slog toward Germany is brutal. The element of surprise is gone. German reconnaissance is everywhere. Every time General Patton or General Bradley wants to move a division, the Germans see it, and they prepare a counterattack. The U.S. Army had a problem. They needed a way to be in two places at once. They needed to convince Hitler that a massive American attack was coming from the north, while the real troops were actually flanking from the south. They didn't need soldiers for this job. They needed artists. And thus, the strangest unit in military history was born. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops consisted of 1,100 men, but their mission was to impersonate a force of 30,000. To do this, they developed a three-pronged strategy of deception that was pure Hollywood magic. First, visual deception. The Army recruited heavily from art schools in New York and Philadelphia. We're talking about future fashion designers like Bill Blass and painters like Ellsworth Kelly. Their canvas wasn't an easel, it was the battlefield. They created an entire fleet of M4 Sherman tanks, transport trucks, and jeeps, made entirely of inflatable rubber and reinforced framing. From 500 yards away, through the lens of a German jagged-edge binocular, these inflatables looked 100% real. But up close, a soldier could lift a 40-ton tank over his head. They would deploy these dummy tanks in open fields under the cover of darkness, partially camouflaging them just enough to be accidentally spotted by German spotter planes. Second, sonic deception. If you have 30,000 men, you have noise. Engines roaring, tracks squeaking, sergeants yelling. A silent army is a fake army. So, the Ghost Army brought in sound engineers from Bell Labs. They recorded the sounds of armored divisions at Fort Knox onto massive wire recorders, the ancestors of cassette tapes. They mounted giant 500-pound speakers on half-tracks. These speakers were so powerful the sound could travel 15 miles. They would blast the sound of a tank column moving out, terrifying German units miles away into thinking an armored division was approaching. Third, and perhaps most dangerous, radio deception. The Germans were excellent at intercepting radio traffic. So, the Ghost Army flooded the airwaves. They created spoof radio. Operators mimicked the Morse code fists, the unique typing style of real radio operators from actual units. They sent fake orders, fake supply requests, and fake battle plans, knowing the Nazis were listening to every single dot and dash. The Ghost Army performed over 20 distinct operations, but their masterpiece came near the end of the war, Operation Fearsen. March 1945. The U.S. Ninth Army needs to cross the Rhine River to strike the heart of Germany. It is a massive, dangerous, amphibious crossing. If the Germans know where the crossing is happening, they can concentrate their artillery and slaughter the Americans in the water. The plan? The real Ninth Army would cross near Wesel. The Ghost Army was sent 10 miles north to Fearsen to pretend to be the entire Ninth Army. 1,100 men of the Ghost Army set up hundreds of inflatable tanks and trucks. They turned the sonic speakers to maximum volume, blasting the sounds of bridge-building pontoon work all night long. They even engaged in atmosphere acting. Ghost Army soldiers would drive trucks back and forth through local towns, wearing the patches of the 30th and 79th Divisions. They would go into bars and cafes where they knew German spies were lurking, drop hints about crossing the river tomorrow, and act like loose-lipped soldiers. It worked. The German high command fell for a hook, line, and sinker. They moved their heavy artillery and reserves north to Fearsen to stop the massive American attack. On the night of the crossing, the Germans shelled the Ghost Army's position mercilessly, blowing up nothing but rubber balloons and empty fields. Meanwhile, 10 miles south, the real Ninth Army crossed the Rhine with minimal resistance. Winston Churchill himself visited the crossing, amazed at how light the German defense was. The Ghost Army packed up their balloons and went home, but they couldn't tell anyone what they had done. Their mission remained top secret. For decades, their wives and children asked, "What did you do in the war?" And they had to answer, "I blew up balloons," or simply say nothing at all. It wasn't until 1996, more than 50 years after the war ended, that the mission was finally declassified. Analysts estimate that the deceptions carried out by the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops saved the lives of between 15,000 and 30,000 American soldiers. These were men who didn't die on a beachhead or a bridge crossing because the German guns were aiming at the wrong place. They weren't the strongest soldiers. They didn't have the heavy armor. But armed with sketch pads, loudspeakers, and sheer American creativity, they fooled the Third Reich and helped save the world. This has been a production of the American Frontline. If you want to see more stories about the hidden history of the U.S. military, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. And tell us in the comments, if you were drafted in 1944, would you rather be in a Sherman tank or holding the balloon version of